Hi, I'm Ferdy Serum, and I want to share with you a presentation that was made 6 months ago at the Rotary Club of Santa Fe, where I'm a member. I was given the opportunity to share with the group the four-way test with regard to digital equity and a program that we were launching that day called New Mexico FaCES. This is that presentation. So New Mexico FaCES began from work with the data casting project as part of the Ozzie Martinez lawsuit. And here you see some of the people and families that inspired us in our work who we're still working with today. Our project goal is to make sure there's equity in opportunities to learn. And as I mentioned earlier, the Martinez-Yazzie lawsuit that showed that the state of New Mexico was not providing the constitutionally guaranteed levels of excellent education to everyone, especially at-risk students, was the motivation for what we're doing. We were challenged to provide access to digital devices and ensure that these students have them, access to high-speed internet, including interim alternatives, because it's going to take a few years for internet to reach everywhere, and to make sure there was sufficient funding for the IT staff to make sure that people knew how to use the equipment and the technologies that are coming with broadband. So there are 4 indicators that were used to determine whether students are at risk: special ed, English language learner, poverty, and anyone who's Native American was automatically included in these at-risk categories. But we identified a 5th: location. If you live in a place where the infrastructure has not been built out, then you're at risk of missing opportunities to learn. And we call these places red dot and yellow dot places because of how they appear on the map when we're mapping out where broadband is available. So our vision is to improve family and community well-being by creating and sharing stories of New Mexico families, traditions, places, and cultures, and learning to thrive in the post-pandemic world in terms of health, work, and learning environments. Our mission is to expand opportunities to learn to all New Mexico families wherever they live, whatever their income, literacy, or at-risk status. We're going to use the current connectivity and resources, and we're going to prepare now for the statewide broadband deployment that's underway. So the first of the 4-way test is the question, is it true? So I have some questions for the audience. In terms of opportunities to learn, is it true that New Mexico students have equitable opportunities to learn? Is it true that New Mexico schools have the capacity to support learning at home? Is it true that New Mexico communities are ready to benefit from broadband? And the answer is, drum roll, it depends completely upon where you live. Digital equity is about the foundations of well-being for families that have 3 concerns: health, employment, and learning. With regard to health, it's important to have broadband to be able to engage with community health services, have access to healthy foods, and to build sustainable communities. For employment, it means developing high-performance skills for working and learning, and access to work-based learning opportunities. And for learning, it means developing the literacy, numeracy, and digital skills to be able to benefit from broadband when it arrives. So first, let me show you what was done in Taos in terms of the truth of these, how these come together. This is a video that was made from La Tormenta de Taos.
I think the story of La Tormenta reminds us of all the different things that you need to have in life.
It begins with a storm.
It's like a tornado, kinda. Que un conejito y su familia estaban en una cueva.
These animals are losing their connection with the earth.
And how a little bunny goes to explore other animal families for advice about what they've learned about the Gran Tormenta.
This play came from my mother. So she is of everything health is what brings her balance.
I feel ancestrally as well as mestiza, very proud of the fact that we are able to share not only with the community but on a global level.
My favorite part of the story is when he visited the deer.
Is when the bees dance.
Being on the stage, I love it, where I get to get the horn, the venado antlers, and make music.
All the singing and dancing.
So every play that I write, I read to my grandma, and she helps me to pick terms that are colloquial. It is not just that it's an owl, it's a tecolote, which is a term that we use here. It's not a riverbed, or it's not something that we pick out of a dictionary. It's an acequia. It's words that are part of this culture. And unless we look to our grandparents and our great-grandparents for those stories, then we don't have a way of passing them down.
And I believe one of the most important things we teach our students moving into the world in which they live in is to understand the culture that they're living in, and also understand individuals who came before them, to offer them the opportunities to be outside and to view nature as it is, to role play, to tell stories, our way of telling about the past, and to give students an opportunity to shine in the way they know how to.
The book is illustrated by the children at Enos Garcia, and it also has the words of the play and the history of the program. It's a cute little book. It will be really great to have a little souvenir for all of the children and their families.
How do they move? What kind of things do they do? With the venados, which are the deer, how would they bow? And what kind of, head movements would the owls make? And so all those ideas got put into the choreography.
Because it's going to show a little bit of every generation, and every generation grew up different. So there's a different story from each generation.
I think learning should always be multi-generational. That is how we are set up to learn, is by looking at our elders, looking at our parents, and our parents are our first teachers.
The part that I love the most is sharing the music and showing how powerful music can be and how it can marry with all of the other art.
What I'm doing in La Tormenta, I'm sort of one of the music directors, and I make sure the kids learn their music, learn the melodies, and try to stay within the rhythms, and also learn the language, the Spanish and the English, so it's properly pronounced. And so it's very important that they learn how to project.
Pienso que lo de La Tormenta es muy importante, les va a ayudar a los demás niños también y a enseñarles lo que está pasando ahora con lo del mundo, con lo del virus, con todo.
I have seen more happening in Taos that is positive than anywhere else I've seen, anywhere else I've been. And I think it's because of the history. It's a perfect good storm.
I think it's really important that we as a community understand how therapeutic and healing the arts are in all the forms. The Tormenta is only one component of the Elementary Arts Visiting Artist Program.
So La Tormenta is a great example of what happens when a community comes together and connects through the arts. Here you see the cover of the book that was given and the gifts of the wisdom from COVID. It was intergenerational, bilingual, intercultural, and it showed how families can learn from nature and regain and maintain their health by listening first to the bees, who said we must grow and eat healthy foods, the venado deer, who said we have to get outside and connect with the earth. The lobos remind us you can't be healthy if you're missing a good night's sleep, especially for many days in a row, so it's important to do that. And the tecolotes remind us of the power of healing breath, clean, fresh air, and that we need water, fresh water. Water is life, to remind the trout. So we've learned by listening to students, to families, to teachers, to parents, grandparents, and even siblings. And we know that in a community, it is the combination of many different gears that sometimes don't fit together exactly well, but when they do, we can anchor these activities in community organizations, such as Rotary. So Rotary is going to be essential in our growth. And we're going to work to promote family learning across the state. The Taos community met these needs because they had a production studio, content creation studio with True Kids 1, where they could do the things they needed to do, and municipalities need to step up and provide these spaces and the equipment. They had a maker space, and they had community anchor institutions where people could go during out-of-school time and learn to do things that couldn't be done in their homes. And also there was a performance space, as you saw, where we can go and celebrate our life and what is being found. So True Kids 1 provided us all of the content creation. The Taos Hive and STEM Arts Lab worked with us in terms of makerspace and the tools and the places to go and access high-speed internet and use it. And the Wildflower Playhouse was where our activities took place and are continuing to take place. So is it true? Yes, it is true. But you need to be in a community that has come together to meet these challenges. The next question is it fair? And again, it depends upon where you live. If you're in a green dot place, you can do everything with broadband. You can Zoom, you can stream, you can upload. If you're in a yellow dot place, it's iffy. Maybe you have to turn your camera off. Maybe you can't always connect. And if you're in a red dot place, you actually have to go somewhere else. And this is where the data casting comes in. Data casting is not the internet. It's a one-way broadcast method using PBS spectrum to send out digital information over the same waves that do high-speed, high-quality digital content. So if you can access public TV, you can access the information on the data casting. It basically sends information into the little device that you see at the bottom, and that information can be received by people who don't even have internet. But it is only one way, just like an escalator. So we don't get mad at the escalator because it only goes down. We understand that we get on the down escalator to go down. If we're going back up, we either have to use the stairs or something else. We're not going to go back up the same way we came down. And the way it works for the internet, typically education has happened especially during COVID. Remote learning happened by teachers putting content on the internet and students being able to access it at home unless they didn't have broadband. The alternate path here is the data casting, where the internet content is put down to a server that broadcasts over the TV waves, and that goes to the data casting unit so students without broadband can do it. So that's what we're doing to try to make it fair. But what we discovered is there are vital signs. Just as in health, if you were going to help somebody, before you do anything, you need to know what their vital signs are with regard to temperature, pulse, and blood pressure before you know what to do. And in learning, we also want to do no harm, so it changes a little bit. The vital sign, instead of temperature, we have technology access, home connectivity, and computing devices. Instead of the pulse, we have human access, literacy, language, and online learning skills. And instead of blood pressure, we have the school capacity to support IT at home and in the building. And so there are metrics for this that we can actually look at and measure. And if you're at level 3, if you're in the red zone, if you're in a red dot place, it means that your connectivity is such that you can't stream, you may not have a device. Your literacy level may be below third grade in any language, and you may have no basic computer skills. And the school that you're in may not have the staff to deploy the receivers or equipment, and online learning may be an optional or infrequent thing for you. In this case, you're highly at risk for not having the opportunities to learn what's necessary to benefit from broadband. In the middle, things are a little iffy. Inconsistent access, maybe you have a device, maybe you don't. You have a moderate level of literacy, but you don't use the email or the web very much. The staff in your school, less than half of the people are using a learning management system, and so it's very stretchy to be able to manage those home devices. So anybody who's at level 2 or 3 really is at risk for opportunities to learn. It's only the people who are in the green zone that have no problem whatsoever. And we're going to be finding out what that proportion is in each community that we work with. But we're using an organic model because we've learned from what happened and what didn't happen during COVID. And there are 2 phases in this model. You're either building agency, building your capacity, like the roots of a tree, and expressing that agency, like the fruits from the tree. And what we found was that during the pandemic, we were not having round-trip learning, we were having one-way or dead-end learning. So we have now learned from our families that what's needed is you begin with a lesson. That's where you're expressing your agency, you're getting some instruction about what to do, but then you build agency by working at practice, and that typically happens at home. What was missing during the pandemic was feedback. There was no way for the students or parents to get feedback to the teachers because it was a one-way path. And the revision also requires that personal use to act on the feedback. And this continuous cycle is what is guiding our learning. The way we're measuring it is in terms of opportunities to learn key 21st century skills. This begins with self-direction. If you have the self-direction, you then have the ability to use your creativity and innovation. If you know how to use technology for learning, you then have the ability to communicate and collaborate. And if you're able to draw upon your local and global connections, you then have the ability to use your creative thinking to do what we're doing, language and cultural preservation in each community. So that's how we're making things fair, is by extending opportunities to learn to everyone, no matter where they live. So the next question for the Rotary is, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And to do this, we're using story maps. These are something provided by Esri, which is a corporation that invented GIS, Geographic Information Systems. It's available to every student and teacher in New Mexico free of charge, and it's used hardly at all because the training has not come with it. So we embed this training in everything we do, and one good example of that is the international folk art market, where we used the global connections that we had. This video was created by students who went to the folk art market and interviewed all of the artists from all over the world. They were able to do a story map that located the country that these artists came from, and they were able to photograph examples of the art and give notated examples of what these were and what they represented, the story of the artists and how they progressed in their country and what being in Santa Fe meant in terms of the folk art market supporting their villages. So the story maps are a very powerful way of communicating this information. They're made in a team, and they're very rich. They're engaging, and we've had students, just last week we had our first examples from students. The first 2 recipes of family recipes and traditions were made by a 5-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. The young lady showed her grandma's tamale recipes, and the young boy showed how he likes to make Rice Krispie treats. So along the way, they were showing their measuring, they were showing their writing skills as they dictated what they were going to say, and even with supervision, we could see them cooking on the stove. So it was quite inspiring to see. The story maps are the way that we're getting these stories told, and you see a brief example here of one of 75 different videos that were made during the International Folk Art Market. So we're helping New Mexico students make these local and global connections using story maps and using technology in this next way. Is it fair? Going back to that question, you can't make a story map unless you have an internet connection. So we're trying to make sure that everyone either has such a connection or knows the place they can go where they can do this work and build these very valuable 21st century skills. So our community storytelling workflow is like this. We begin with relationships, from families, traditions, and places. They identify the stories that they wish to tell. We give them the training on how to make a story map. They're able to view them on demand, and then we're able to distribute them through the internet, through public TV, and through the data casting. Our on-ramps for family engagement are, first, we have a family contact map. We have a project called Micro Seasons that goes every 5 days to get people started. They create story maps for the digital library, and these are the stories that have already been put onto the data casting unit over the last 6 months and the year before that we worked on that. The fourth question for Rotary is, will it benefit all concerned? And bypassing these brick walls that constrain the community well-being, we're addressing literacy levels, self-efficacy, and especially math, which is a gatekeeper for further progress. What does it take to be successful? The essential qualities for FaCES are two things: a can-do attitude and empathy. We've discovered that when learners set goals with another person and they get feedback and the support, it is the second most powerful of all interventions we can do. And we're using a new method called family learning. This is regular use of software in the home where the parents are learning alongside the children. What we've discovered is if the parents spend 10 minutes with their kids, the kids will spend between a half an hour to an hour on these engaging activities in English, Spanish. It's even been done in Swahili and any other languages, and we're working now with Pueblos through digital sovereignty to put their own protected sacred learnings into a digital format that they control. So the potentials are huge. The first question we ask is, do you have someone to learn with and to choose your learning goal? So this is different than school learning, and focusing on the families is what we think is going to really work. Our goal is to make sure that we're able to create effective learning habits in children and adults that can be used for any learning purpose. And when it comes to employment, we're working with Seymour Impact Labs and their CSM course, which builds high performance. It's a self-paced academic course that is available to anyone of any ability. It takes between 20 hours to 70 hours to accomplish it, and it resets your relationship with frustration and builds persistence, which is necessary for success. So ways to engage in Santa Fe: we're having listening sessions around the community to find out what families really need and want and how we can best support them, because we know that the people facing the problems are the ones who have the answers on how those problems can be solved. We're giving people a test drive on the family learning software for free, and we're inviting employers to try out the CSM with their families of their employees. So if you want more information on this, contact me. My email is at the bottom. This is the presentation that we presented 6 months ago when FaCES was first publicly announced, and we're still continuing that work, and we're reaching out to Rotary clubs all over, asking students to think about doing their 4-way test essays as story maps, and really beginning partnerships in each community, starting with the youth. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and we are grateful for the support of Rotary and the families and the communities that we all are working in for service beyond self. Thanks again.